We now
the salary
know
cap is real.
Not just who the Lions are playing, but exactly the order they're going to play these teams too. And I wonder how much of this aligned with what the players wanted, because we've heard many different kind of takes. One of the more popular ones is, get those cold and those outside games out the way early. I believe that was via Kirby Joseph, and he was sitting down with Rich Eisen. And so now we got that schedule.
Yeah.
You got the schedule release graphic?
Yep.
Smooth?
Man, yeah. So now that we see it all in front of us, looking immaculate, looking tough at times.
Shout out to Ryan Lentz.
Shout out to Ryan Lentz, the best in the business. But I look at a couple of different pockets of the season, because this schedule, on paper at least, and you never know how it plays out, it's more difficult than it's been maybe in my entire life as a Lions fan. On paper, by the way. I look at those first 3 games. I look at Green Bay, home against Chicago, at Baltimore. If you go 2-1 in that stretch, I'm throwing a parade. At Cincinnati and at Kansas City back-to-back, I think you got to split those. I think you got to split at Washington and at Philadelphia back-to-back. And I think you got to split at Minnesota and at Chicago back-to-back. How I see this playing out is they do go 2-1, 1-1, 1-1, and 1-1 respectively in those scenarios, and they lose one game at home in maybe an inexplicable fashion, and they end the season 12-5. And I think that'll be enough to get them that division title. It's not 15-2, but 12-5 with this schedule would be a hell of a regular season. But that's just my opinion. It could all... One of these guys could, in theory, go down with a season-ending injury. I don't want to put anything out in the universe because I like seeing the best players play, but on paper, it looks like a 12-5 schedule to me.
12-5. I see Vincent E. He's thinking more along the lines of me, that this is going to be a 13-4 season for the Detroit Lions. I'm real bullish on them, and I'm hoping that their reliance, that they do rely a little bit more in depth, keep their guys fresh, because Brandon Graham's talked about it on Good Morning Football about the difference between the Lions and Eagles. They asked him, like, were you shocked? Were you surprised? He said, no, I think that the Lions fare better if they're just healthy. But, because they're a talented team. He said he really actually wanted to see that matchup despite his affinity to the Eagles. But he says that those Lions, when healthy, though, he expects them to be somebody formidable. He expects them to be along the lines of what we thought this Lions team was going to be last year. We know how it ended, but this is a year where I'm hoping between them going out there and BTA playing through the whistle without getting a flag, I'm wanting them to do what the Eagles did last year, and that's end the season as healthy as possible. It sucked hearing that be one of the main narratives all week of that Super Bowl, is that, and during some of the playoffs, is that the Eagles are running out there with effectively all their starters, and they're a healthy team, and they got their depth pieces. Because one of the constant refrains we're going to hear about the Lions, and if they can get it done, I don't think it has anything to do with talent. It's just really more or less going to have to do with how healthy they can be. And the way that the schedule just kind of lays out, I like it. And you're getting kind of a couple of your NFC opponents out the way. You're getting Lambeau out the way early, so you don't have to worry about that being some type of factor later on in the season when it's the absolute frozen tundra.
Sure, and that to me, getting Lambeau out of the way in week 1, getting Baltimore, getting like Green Bay, Baltimore, Cincy, and KC out of the way in the first 6 weeks, I think that's big. I know a lot of people don't like when you mention cold weather as any sort of hindrance to this team, and they've proved some things. Like, they went into Lambeau last year in bad weather and actually looked like the team that could handle it, and they didn't look like the dome team. But at the end of the day, this is a dome team, and I would prefer them to not play a bunch of outdoor games in November and December. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just really happy that they won't. You look at the Bears.
They do got the Bears one.
Week 18. That might not mean anything, but that's going to be tough. You look at Washington and Philly kind of mid-season. Those are obviously going to be tough. But as I said, with those road games, I expect them to go, if I'm just looking at the schedule as a whole, because one other takeaway is that this home schedule is, right for the picking. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I think that there's a very good possibility that the Lions go 8-0 or 7-1 at home and 5-4 on the road. And I think that is just an enormous success for this team. And hopefully they end the season healthy. But the home schedule, that's what's really going to offset some of these tough road games. And in my opinion, I mean, you look at, and I know the heavyweights mentioned it yesterday, look at that stretch from week 12 to week 14. You got the Giants, which is probably one of their probably their easiest game on paper as of right now. You got the Packers at home, and you got the Cowboys at home. Yep. That to me looks like 3-0. That to me looks like you go 1-1, you play a couple of tough games, and then you go 3-0.
I think that's your difference probably between your 13-4s. Yeah. And if you're seeing this team be more of an 11 or 12 win team, you want to see them go out there because those are handle your business games. You're at home. You're going to have the best fans. You're going to be favored. And what I like about this, and I got this shirt on, man, shout out to the NFC North Kings for 2 years in a row. I want to see this team go out there and effectively go, and I say effectively go, undefeated, because I don't know what implications that last week is going to be. Are the Lions going to go into week 18 playing their guys like Dan Campbell has done in the past? Or if things are wrapped up, are they going into week 18 this year with health in mind and deciding to rest some guys in maybe an upstart Bears team or Bears squad with Ben Johnson at the end of the season has a little bit more rhythm offensively? I don't know, but I do expect them to go out there and still BTA the NFC North, which I think is going to be what propels and underpins their record. Then when you do combine that with these other, like, I expect them to go out there at home and beat the Browns. I expect them to go at home and beat the Giants. I expect them, and it's going to be a battle, but I do expect them at home to beat the Buccaneers. These are just in Thanksgiving. Like, as I'm looking at this roster, I wanted to be even more zealous and aggressive with it, but I wanted to be able to realize, okay, there's going to be some times when they just have a clunker of a game, and that's where I came away with 13-4. I want to be able to go and say they're going to be as good record-wise as they were last year. I think that this record, this schedule, I don't believe that it's as daunting a schedule. When I kind of look at last year's, I thought it presented some challenges, but early on, if they can handle the Baltimore Ravens, I do believe that this sets up well for the Detroit Lions to go
13-2 again?
13-4.
Okay, all right. 13-4.
Nobody called 15-2.
Not calling 15-2. I wouldn't
have
even called that last year.
I didn't mean to say again. My bad. But
I think last year I might have called for 12, but this year I'm calling for 13, and it's because I believe the Detroit Lions are a big boy team. I know that I'm looking at some teams on here that traditionally we're like, man, it's the Ravens, it's the Eagles, they just won. The Commanders just beat us. I just don't really care about that. Even the Buccaneers, we understand how good they were, and they wound up getting us. Those are going to be your problem games. I know that the Rams have improved a lot, but I still look forward to the Detroit Lions owning and controlling that game and that narrative. And so, I don't know. If the Lions are who we say they are, this is a team that should go out there and realistically win 12 or 13 and lose no more than 3, 4, or 5 games.
And that Rams game right there, that's one that I didn't mean to gloss over because it's not – they've got like an absurd gauntlet, at least on paper, of like back-to-back tough road games in 3 different sections, one where you play 2 out of your first 3 on the road. But that Rams game, I'm higher on the Rams than a lot. I know that they've got a lot of talent.
No, they improved.
They've got a young defense with guys that are continuing to grow, like Verse and Braden Fisk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They got Devontae Adams to create a Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams duo, which could be tantalizing. I think that one could ultimately be for seeding, ultimately could determine whether or not the Lions have a winning road record or not. But one thing that I wanted to, there are a couple other takeaways that I have before I throw it over to the rest of my crew. This defense is going to get tested.
Yes.
The pass rush is going to get tested. The secondary is going to get tested. And one of the ways that I want to highlight that, and JB, I apologize if you have to take the schedule off for a second.
No, you're good.
But I got one more thing I want to show, which is the quarterbacks that the Lions are going to be facing. And when you really look at it, it's pretty daunting. In my opinion, these are the 8 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And these are in alphabetical order, not because I didn't want to create controversy with any sort of ranking. Josh Allen, fortunately, you don't play. I'm glad to miss him this year in the regular season. Although that Super Bowl, we'll see. But Joe Burrow, play him on the road. Jaden Daniels, road. Jared Goff, he's ours. Jalen Hurts, road. Lamar Jackson, road. Patrick Mahomes, road. Matthew Stafford, road. If you guys have any beef with the top 8 quarterbacks, that's fine. But I think that that's a pretty reasonable list. And the Lions got to play 6 out of 8 of them on the road. And Jared Goff, being ours, obviously we don't have to play him. Fortunately, Noah, Josh Allen, that's going to be tough. The pass rush is going to get tested. The secondary is going to get tested. Whether or not they're going to have trouble with any sort of mobility is going to be tested. it's daunting. Am I saying that they can't do it? No, but I think you're going to be happy. You're going to have to accept, in my opinion, a couple of days where maybe your defense doesn't look the best. Maybe you lose a game that you don't want to lose. But in the big picture, this might actually be helpful because this is a gauntlet. You can't deny it. It's a gauntlet.
But I also understand when you look at those quarterbacks up there, there's one named Jared Goff.
Sure.
And the pressure that the Lions offense can put on those teams' defenses, despite what their quarterbacks are, that to me is going to be one of your biggest factors. This Lions offense, when it's in rhythm, nobody's stopping them. Nobody. And they can put points up on you fast. And I get the notion and the narrative of, but they got a new offensive coordinator stepping in. I don't think that that's going to stop them. I'm actually under the belief that they're going to start out more in rhythm this season, better than they did last season. And by the time you do get into week 6 through 10, 11, 12, you're going to see a well-oiled machine that's going to go out there and can attack you from many different points all over the field. Because what's going to wind up happening is exactly what we said over the last 2 years. People who wanted to discount the Lions to certain degrees because of who we were playing, it's like, but do you understand that the other quarterback has to be darn near perfect? You have to be a superstar. You have to literally be like one of the next comings to be able to defeat the Detroit Lions. And when we've seen them lose, it's been only those types of performances realistically from quarterbacks. I still hate the freaking broadcast for playing Baker Mayfield's moxie of a juke, and then
they didn't. Freaking, and for the record, I believe in Baker Mayfield as a good NFL quarterback, but the Buccaneers did not win that game because of Baker. They won that game because they held the Lions to like 1 out of 7 on red zone. Yeah. And shout out to them, and shout out to Baker for making the plays when it mattered.
But in that game, the loss, in my opinion, was, you're right, it was on the defense. But we haven't seen anybody else do that to the Lions, and that's where I put a lot of my faith in them. And they aptly came out and said, look, we're not in rhythm right now doing that. And that's where I look at this and I say, I do believe in Jared Goff. I do believe in this Lions offense being one of the best top 2, top 3, and can put so much pressure and can control the time of possession. When you're talking about David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, when you're talking about possession receivers, when you're talking about a Sam Laporta, who I hope they do utilize a little bit more this year, that's where I think that this team has opportunity to go in there and not just neutralize some of these top quarterbacks, but to go in there and actually have the advantage in a lot of these games, despite who's on the other side.
Yeah, and the offense is, I'm not concerned about them and Goff, even if they have to get in a couple of shootouts, which I think is probably going to happen. Yeah. Like there's no denying that, because there's another aspect that I want to highlight, and it's not meant to instill fear. It's just, I was perusing, because I'm not afraid, I'm just accepting that they're not going to be 15-2 again, and that's okay. The secondary is going to get tested quite a bit as well. This DJ Reed, CB1, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Rocky Sin, Avonte Maddox, obviously Branch, and Joseph. And secondary is going to get. I thought I said Arnold.
Nah, you might have.
I might have. I obviously meant it because he's going to be starting. And a shout out to the Thanksgiving Day games as well. Lions are always there. The Cowboys are playing the Chiefs. That'll be fun. Bengals, Ravens. That's always a really fun matchup. Those AFC North clashes are pretty great. But why I highlighted the secondary, and I got to give credit to my good friend and old showmate, Mr. Lucas Klotz.
Shout out, Lucas.
He brought up that there's a lot of great wide receivers that the Lions are going to have to face. And I'll just kind of go through them briefly by the schedule. Bears, DJ Moore. Browns, Jerry Jeudy. Bengals, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. Or Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Chiefs, Rashee Rice is back. Buccaneers, you've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin coming off injury. We all know about the Vikings. Jefferson's the best in the league still, in my opinion, and Jordan Addison's a damn good number 2. You got Terry McLaurin with Washington. You've got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith with the Eagles. You've got Malik Neighbors, who was Odell Beckham-ish in his rookie year with the New York Giants. He was damn good. You got the Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb and now George Pickens. You've got the Rams with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. You've got the Steelers now with DK Metcalf, and obviously the Vikings and Bears again. So the secondary is going to get tested. And the pass rush hopefully can, and this is where Hutch being back and hopefully Davenport being healthy and Josh Pascal taking a leap, or they get someone else that could play a role as well. Put pressure on these quarterbacks so that, a Terrion or a DJ Reed don't have to cover in man for 4 or 5 seconds, because it's going to be tough. This defense is gonna allow some plays. I think there's gonna be a couple of receivers that go off a time or two, but it doesn't matter as long as the Lions win. You look at 2023, Justin Jefferson individually absolutely murdered the Lions, but it didn't matter because his quarterback was Nick Mullins and the Lions still won those games. I think the Lions might have a couple of games like that where maybe you look up and it's like, damn, Jamar Chase has 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, but the Lions win 38-31. And that's more than great.
And I think that's the key. If you're getting beat because the best quarterbacks or the best wide receivers are just going off, or if you're even winning those games, you really live with those results ultimately. And I do believe this. The difference between what we saw to the secondary 2 years ago when Justin Jefferson did that with Nick Mullins versus how Brad Holmes has worked to shore them up is where, you know what, they're looking at the roster, they're looking at the teams that have to play, they know what the weaknesses and strengths are going to be as it relates to matchup by matchup. And I am more bullish on the secondary. Obviously, there's still some questions, though. When you're talking about the mix, it's not the same makeup. So you're going to really rely on a lot of internal growth, even from the guys that you call stars like Kirby Joseph now and Brian Branch. They're going to have to run it back. This defense, in my opinion, is going to depend on those guys still being ball hawks in the red zone and taking away complete possessions from the other team. That was instrumental to the Lions going even 15-2. Because remember, when the pass rush went down, there was a lot that they couldn't stop in between the 20s. But when they got into that red zone, there was almost this feeling that came across Detroit where we understood, it's a completely different ball game right now. In the trenches and as well as what we were able to do with those safeties in the back. And I'm hoping that this year they have a little bit more in the recipe to be able to effectively cover and keep some of these other kind of your B and your C wide receivers from going off, your tight ends from going off, because there's only so much you can do to stop some of these wide receivers that they're going to go.
And for the record, I didn't use the Justin Jefferson in 2023 example to be like the Lions secondary is the same. They're obviously better. I just use it as an example of even with the Lions secondary being better this year, I do think there's going to be at least 2 or 3 games, maybe even more, where some of the pass defense statistics look a little bit ugly, but they win the game. And that's fine. And it may even happen in the playoffs. I mean, to go back to that same season, it happened in the playoffs against the Rams with Puka Nacua. It does not matter in the grand scheme of things. You got to win some of these tough games, and you got to take care of business at home. I think that's going to be the theme of this season.
I think then the question that comes to me then is this. Do they have enough then for the red zone? We know what Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch are, but do they have enough as it relates to another year for Alex Anzalone? And coming off of an injury, we know he came back and still looked like Anzo. Jack Campbell, we're hoping he takes a serious mean step forward. And then we're relying on, realistically, the depth behind that are all returning players from injury. And then you're talking about the pass rush, because I saw a chat earlier that said, wait, we didn't improve our pass rush. This schedule makes me uneasy now. So it's like, do they have enough to still be that team they've been in the 20s? The last 3 seasons, we've seen them be one of the best red zone teams in the NFL, and now you're hoping that they carry that on.
Yeah, and I'm not mad at that opinion, because I personally, this is what I believe, do not think the Lions really improved their pass rush at all. However, I cannot say with certainty that Marcus Davenport will be on IR again. I can't say with certainty that Josh Paschal won't have a contract year leap. Am I predicting it? No, I am not. But even if it's just Aiden Hutchinson and the D-line and not a whole lot as a bookend, I have a lot of faith, even if this Lions defense, endures some attrition, not as much as last year, but some. I think they will be a good red zone defense. And I think that that's going to be critical. You're going to win a couple of these games by a field goal. I really believe that. Or you're going to win a couple of these games by 4 because let's just say the Bengals or the Commanders, which I would love to get back on them, kick a field goal, and then the Lions counter that with a touchdown. I think that's going to happen.
I'm glad you said that, because we've seen them go out there and drop 50 and blow teams out, but we've also seen that they're built to win those close games too, which is why we were so ecstatic to see them go and get Jake Bates, because it changed up the philosophy and the strategy that they were able to do in some of those close games that we saw them win. But what up, though, KG?
Yeah, and shout out to the NFL keeping the Lions in prime time. We have 5 traditional primetime games, 7 if you count, Thanksgiving and the Netflix Christmas Day game. I'm really looking forward to that one. But to me, the toughest part of the schedule is the first 7 games. That's going to be your toughest stretch of football because you're getting the NFC North a lot earlier this year. That's going to be important. So it's almost imperative that you get off to a hot start, because if you don't, that road schedule, and we all know they were perfect on the road last year, probably not a chance they'll do that this year. But you look at that Ravens game, that Bengals game, and that Chiefs game, those games have a possibility to be shootouts, and I think that they will turn into shootouts, especially that Bengals, and then happen to play the Chiefs the week after that. Both games, like that's a tough road stretch. But once you get past that in that bye week, I think the schedule becomes a lot more favorable for you, although you do have the Commanders and the Eagles. I mean, you got the Giants there. I think it's safe to say the Cowboys will cowboy by fucking week 14. Until they prove otherwise, I think it's pretty safe to assume that. And if Stafford is still upright by week 15, I think that is also a crucial point that the Lions can win, because you got to take that into account.
That's fair, but like Stafford's also been healthy.
He's been great.
and multiple playoff. I wouldn't say runs because he only had one, but his playoff stats with the Rams are historically good.
Yeah,
so he's always there.
He's battled injury the last couple of years. He's just been able to play through it.
He had that one year where, like right after they won the Super Bowl, where he did get hurt. So I guess, that's fair. And
he's
older.
Been able to play through the stuff. That's where you got to give him credit. But once again, we're talking about week 15.
Sure.
There's no telling what can happen by the time December rolls around.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the rest of the schedule. I mean, Steelers don't have a quarterback. We don't know what the fuck to expect from them. And then you got the last 2 division games to close the year. So if you can get past that first 7 game stretch and maybe get to the bye looking at maybe 5-2, 4-3, I think the Lions are in a very, very good position. And like you said, Sam, they're going to get tested early, from the pass rush to the secondary to how well can you really contain mobile quarterbacks. We're going to get a lot of answers to a lot of questions very, very early on. You just really hope that the Lions can stay healthy throughout this thing. But to me, this is a 13-win team. I'll stand on that. To me, the ceiling is 13. The floor should be 11. And Sam, this is why, some people last year and even this year were kind of saying, the division is not as important as some people make it out to be. Do we want the division? Do we want the number 1 seed? Of course we want those things. But it's not just a cowboy mentality that we just want to say, oh, fuck it, let's go on the road in the playoffs. Nobody really wants that. But just based on the schedule and how hard things can really be, this team could be an 11-win team, a wild card team. And if they do, that's fine. But I expect the Lions, being the team that they are and how they're assembled, if they're healthy, to go out on the road in the playoffs and win in the playoffs. And that's what it's all about at this point.
And KG, unfortunately, we're never going to see eye to eye. We're not even going to see close to eye to eye, because I'll make this declaration. And now, knowing that I make this declaration and it's going to cause me a lot of embarrassment if it happens, I don't care. If the Detroit Lions are a wild card team and get to the Super Bowl and win it with all road games, I will shave my head.
Oh shit!
I will get the fucking Nick Koloff male pattern baldness shaved into my head on this show.
Hey, it's on wax.
Oh,
because anybody who thinks that's an advantageous path to the Super Bowl, I think is sadly mistaken.
It's definitely not advantageous.
We don't want that pussy 1 seed.
But Sam, I'm saying nobody wants to go on the road in the playoffs, but it could be a possibility.
My man KG is like, I would think somebody who's all meats, no sides would understand it.
No, but
he think it's just we're choosing to go on the road. That's not the case.
But what people don't understand are the Patriots dynasty, the Chiefs dynasty, other than a couple exceptions.
Yes,
they lived off of playing games, playoff games at home. It has happened 7 times since the wild card became a thing in 1970 for a wild card team to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that it can't.
But if the Lions went on the road in the playoffs and they were fully healthy, would you expect them to win in the playoffs? Yes or no?
If they're a wild card team, I would not predict them to win the Super Bowl, even if they were completely healthy.
Y'all know I'm predicting them to.
Even if they're
healthy,
I mean, these are the waters that they're in now. We're talking about them being an elite NFC team.
Of course,
like a top 2 to 3 NFC team.
Even if
I expect top 2 to 3 play. And I know the odds are against us. I'm just saying, like, if it happens like that, we got to live with it. That's all I'm saying.
Because they're going to be they're going to be a much more healthy. Knock on wood. Golly.
Sure.
We hope they're a much more healthy team by the end of the season. You're talking about getting a Lee McNeil back. We hope by week 6, 7, 8. this should be a team that by the time you get to the playoffs, if your depth is right, that is one of those squads you talk about, like we talked about and discussed about the Eagles being healthy. This is something that I believe is going to be what they have to overcome. And then you have to ask yourself, do they take any unnecessary L's in the beginning of the season while they're trying to get healthy? Because Aleem McNeil is a big boy. That's a big domino for your defense. And it's like, I keep sitting here thinking like, okay, how did these first 7 games go? After the break, I want to be able to ask you guys what's that record going into the bye week, because I already see a couple people put theirs in chat. Family, share yours too. What's your record going into the bye week? Keep in mind, Aleem McNeil is gone for some time.
Yeah, and that's where they're in a position with this schedule this year where I think I predict them to trip up once at home, but any home loss would probably be like WTF, barring injury, of course, because I think they'll be favored in every home game.
Terrell Lamar says 7-0 in the first 7 for sure. Ed O'Neill says 5-2 headed to the bye. So we'll hold ours. And then chat family, get some more of those in the chat. KG, if you can keep an eye on those as well. My phone keep doing weird things.
I got you.
Thank you.